And people have been very excited to hear that you're going to be speaking this afternoon. And they're very interested in hearing about you. What it is that brings you to this table, having spent 7 years as CEO of Vodafone Ireland. So how did it all begin for Anne O'Leary?
Well, I was born in Beaumont Drive in Cork, only girl with 3 brothers. And I really didn't have an ambition to be a CEO. It wasn't something I really thought about. In my family growing up, my mother had decided I was going to be a nurse. She thought that was a good job for a girl. And I was a bit clueless. And I thought it was a good idea until the day before the interview. And I told her I'm not going for that job. Because I think we all know nursing is a bit of a vocation. And I don't think it's a core competency of mine. So, and then really I actually went to Skerry's Secretarial College, much to my mother's disappointment. And I started my first job with Nixdorf Computer, 6769 South Mall, remember it well. And from there I got into the world of technology.
And what did you do at Nixdorf?
What did I do at Nixdorf? I was kind of brought in to do a bit of office administration. So it'd be like answering the phone, doing the typing, taking customer calls. And when you get into some of these companies, they look at you, and if you're any good, they train you to do other stuff. So I did some telesales. I studied marketing by night in CIT. I went on to do other courses. So it was kind of, my learning has probably been lifelong learning now. And I suppose it's something to think about for people, that you don't, once you leave college or do a course, you'll always keep learning and studying. And then I went to Flextronics, Dovatron in Cork. Then I moved to London, worked in Reuters. Then I came back, I worked for Golden Pages, which was the Google of its time, so don't laugh. And then I joined ESAT Telecom in technology again. And that's over 25 years ago.
And you moved from role to role, and each time you worked hard and you moved up.
Yeah.
Would hard work be something that's key to you?
I think it's key. If you ask anyone who's successful in business, whether it's their own business or working for a big corporation, you have to work hard. And I had strong work ethic in my family, in me. I was always very appreciative of getting a job. And when I went in there, it was always about proving that I could do the job I was in, which I think is very important. And what usually happens in companies is if you do a good job at the job you're doing, you're kind of spotted for promotions or stretch projects or different opportunities. And that is really what we do, what I did, and what we do in Vodafone. And you hear that with people that do good work. We give them more projects, you know, and that's what happened with me. And I took those opportunities, and I have to say, I did work long hours and had to produce good results.
In the audience, there are students at 2nd level and at 3rd level. And there's some people who are doing in the Leaving Cert cycle, and they're doing probably subjects that they think they're going to drop after the Leaving Cert. And they mightn't be putting as much emphasis on them. What would be your advice to them?
You know, what I say to people, we interview a lot of people, we take a lot of graduates in, we talk to people. Just to be clear, what I really do not like, and I do not hire people, usually, if they say is, I was really smart, but I only got a C or a D. It really upsets me. What I much prefer hearing is, I really did my best, and I got a C in that, or I got a B in that, or I got a D. It really is about people doing their best at whatever they do. And you don't have to be the A student. If you are, lucky you. I certainly wasn't. But you have to be smart enough, I say to people. And you have to show that you have work ethic and you've done your best. Because there's nothing worse than wasted talent, I think. So what I would say to you, whether you're in college or in school, enjoy your course, yes, but do your best. Put in the work. And whatever comes out then. But at least you've felt you've done it.
So you moved into the world of technology, and today you're CEO of a global company. So how do you feel like being a CEO of a technology company, not having come from a technology background?
So the first thing I say is, so why I'm here and why I talk at events is because we have so few females in technology. Only 21% of our workforce in digital and technology in Ireland are females. It's really low. And of the research we do with women, we did a global one, 8,000 young women were asked about being a technologist or a digital person, and only 17% saw them in those roles. So there's a lot of unconscious bias out there, there's a lot of barriers out there, which comes not just from school or college, but actually from home. Like my mother saying is, you'd be a lovely nurse. Sure, why wouldn't you do nursing? She didn't mean it, of course. She's just trying to find a job, but benevolence can hold people back. So now we're really trying to encourage people to say, you know, look at me. I look fairly normal, and I'm the CEO of a technology company. Yes, you need to be smart, but not too smart, smart enough, but other skills like emotional intelligence, you know, kindness, empathy, other things about working with people, about leading people, not just whatever you qualify in, whether it's maths, science, chemistry, physics. And I think, which we'll talk about the future of work, you know, the world is going more digital. Technology is leading in a lot of areas. And I think having an understanding and a training in it is really beneficial, even if you don't think you are going to be an engineer or a lab technician or whatever. I think you really need to be open to that. So they say about women, you know, you can't be what you can't see. So they don't see, there's only 9% of CEOs are female. You know, think about that. So young girls are not necessarily going to say, I'm going to be the CEO of Google, the CEO of Microsoft, or the CEO of Vodafone. But I'm hoping when you see me, you might think, well, actually, I could be a CEO. She seems fairly normal. She looks fairly normal, and that's something I could aspire to. And what I can just say is that companies like us are really trying to attract particularly females that have studied STEM subjects, because we need our workforce to reflect society, to reflect our customers. And more women are making decisions in the household about things like connectivity, mobile phones, actually about everything. So we need to make sure we're talking to our customers in the right way, and we need all perspectives, the male and the female perspective.
So, and the commitment to hard work, I think courage, tenacity, and not fear, not afraid to fail, possibly are some of the characteristics which have brought you to the role you're in today. But could you take us back to I suppose when you joined Vodafone, you left from a very senior role at ESAT.
BT, British Telecom.
Yeah. And then you moved into BT and then there to Vodafone and started in a particular role there. How did you move up to CEO level?
So the first thing, I'd been in ESAT and British Telecom for about 12 years, and I was approached by Vodafone. And at that time, I was really doing very well in BT, and everything was going well. So it took courage to leave. And I often say to people, what would you do if you weren't afraid? Because I was afraid to leave a comfortable, successful job and go in to a new job where I might be figured out that I'm not good enough, or I mightn't be good, or I might fail. So I often say that was a pivotal moment. It was the best move I ever made, right? It was a significant career move. I went in as B2B director, so I ran all our business customers, product sales, marketing. And when I went in there, I was like, will I be able to do this? Will I be successful? Maybe I'll fail. Maybe it's a mistake. So we all have these little things, voices in our head that hold us back, you know, and they can be from childhood or wherever. And for 5 years, I worked really hard as B2B director. And I delivered significant growth in the business. I reshaped the business. We grew market share in the business. So it was really good, okay? So every year they'd say, you're very good, we'll give you more, well done, great. I'm delighted. Well, after about 5 years, I kind of put my head up and say, yeah, I think I'm good at this job, right? And then the CEO role came up of Vodafone Ireland. And B2B people, business to business, don't usually get those roles. They're usually consumer-facing roles. So that was a bit unusual, but they said, we're going to consider you, you're the only Irish person going to be considered for this role. And then they have a global slate of people, so you don't know who you're up against. And I went for the job, and I got the job based on hard work and delivery for the past 5 years, so I was delighted. But I want to call out something during that period. So we talk about the biases that are out there, structural biases, unconscious biases that we all have about people, etc. When I asked 80% of my friends and everyone about going for the CEO role of Vodafone, they said, "Are you mad? Why would you take that job? That's going to be really tough. You're successful enough already. Don't you earn enough money? Why would you bother?" That, again, is benevolent bias. It's never said to men. Do you know what they say to men? Sure, give it a shot, and if you fail, it doesn't matter. Give it a try. Okay? So I learned something, and I said it's like, imagine if you trained for a marathon, and all along the course, everyone's shouting, "Don't bother finishing. Don't bother finishing." And you're like, "I've been training for a year." And 100 meters from the finish line, they say, "Don't bother crossing the line." That is what it was like. It was absolutely mind-blowing. So we all have to be very careful as parents, as friends, as employers about what we say to people. Instead, they should have said, "Go for it. And sure, what happens if you fail? They'll tell you after 6 months or a year, you failed, but you've learned something." I'm in the job 7 years and they still haven't fired me.
And the key, and they're lucky to have you. And the key, Anne, with you is that you walk the walk. So you really believe, you encountered bias, you encountered obstacles along the way, and now that you are in a position of leadership where you say that doing good is good business. So will you talk to that, because you have you're a trailblazer in the context of inclusion, diversity and equality in the workplace.
So I suppose when I became CEO, I said to myself, I'm going to use this platform for good. I'm going to do all I can in terms of gender diversity. We're going to lead on that, and other family-friendly policies. And that's what I've been doing for 7 years. Because I kept thinking they were going to fire me, so I might as well get it done fast. But it's still there and it's still going. So we have 50-50 females at leadership level within Vodafone. And that is quite unique in the technology industry, just to say. And I would have put in, groundbreaking maternity leave policies, fully paid 26. When you return to work after having a baby, you work 4 days, get paid 5 days. We just announced a paternity leave policy. So the feedback I was getting from men is, non-birthing parents, I'm going to say men, but obviously it can be different circumstances, was, I can't afford to spend time with my new child because of the negative financial implications of taking time off. So now Vodafone has 16 weeks fully paid for all non-birthing parents, which is usually men, after a child is born, and they do ramp on as well. They come back, they work 4 days, they get paid 5. It's done 2 things. It's reduced the negative career implications for women, where there was bias, thinking they were going to take time off, and it has reduced the negative financial implications for men in terms of it. And then, we don't like talking about these things, but domestic violence and abuse and domestic coercive control is a huge issue in Ireland. 1 in 5 women will experience through their lifetime. So we brought out a new policy, 10 days leave for anyone experiencing abuse or coercive control, access to professional counselling, advances on salary, and the ability to set up their own bank account. So again, it's taking societal issues that are out there and bringing in policies and work that can support them, but it's highlighting the issues in our society. And I feel very passionate about it. And I believe because of it, we attract amazing talent, we have more engagement. 90% of the women that go on maternity leave in Vodafone Ireland stay an average of 9 years. That's unbelievable. So it's a staff retention tool. We have flexible working. We have no meetings before 9 or after 5. There's a whole range of policies that are family friendly, which acknowledges that women will probably, most of them, have children if they want to. And if they do, there are absolutely no barriers to promotion or opportunity. And for the men and non-birthing partners, they can play an equal part in family life and what's expected now.
So if you think of what the big challenge in the news these days, coronavirus, and the fact that many of us may have to work remotely, or we have to live in isolation, self-isolate. I think if ever there was a person who is the right person to be sitting here today, it's you. because you are championing, leading a company which is doing its utmost to make every part of Ireland well connected, to enable remote working and also living in a way that people are not feeling isolated because they will be connected. So in a sense, you're kind of future-proofing us. So we're talking here about the future of work. So can you talk a little bit about, in that future, what does productivity look like to you?
Yeah. So I think the first thing we talk about, our purpose is to create a better future. And it's a connected world, and it's connecting for good. And you talk about having the best mobile voice and data network so people can connect for business or personal reasons. And through something like this coronavirus, that is more and more important. It's going to be key for people to interact with each other. Our partnership with the ESB, where we're rolling out to 450,000 homes over the electricity infrastructure, is about bringing this connectivity. And Skibbereen was the first town chosen, and we have a hub down there. So the importance of those in terms of inclusion for all, not just females, but even the elderly or the isolated or rural. So I think we are in a good position in terms of the importance of that and the role of that during a crisis like Corona, and hopefully it won't escalate. However, we do that. But I think about, so productivity people talk about, and when I joined Vodafone, there was a lot about presenteeism. So, you know, people want, if they were in the office at 7 and they were there till 10 at night, that's what it was about. Those days are gone. Presenteeism is not seen as something good. It's about, what are the outputs of your work? What do you have to achieve in your job every day? And how do you achieve them in a way that's best for you? Some people like to work early in the morning, some people are more lunchtime, some are evening. It's respecting the individual and having policies that support people to work their way, to bring their whole self to work. So I think, you know, it's not a production line, but we have to hire difference and bring people in and respect people's personal situation and how they can and want to work, which can include remotely. And I think more and more we're going to see that, that people want a work-life balance that suits them. And, you know, we heard the happy pairs earlier talk about doing what you love and having a purpose. So people are not willing to be in the office from 7 in the morning till 10 at night, and we have to respect that. So I think productivity is about, what is your objective, your manager or leader agreeing that with you and agreeing your output and giving fair and balanced reviews during the year so you know where you are and how you're doing.
And what would you say to your 13-year-old self?
I'd say, don't bother about nursing. Nursing isn't for you. It's fine for some people, just not for you. I think what I, you know, sort of say, as 13, I think if I had, you know, 4 daughters or whatever, I would say to them, do your best, right? You know, apply yourself to what you decide to do. I really would encourage people and to study maths or, you know, be braver and be bolder, that don't listen to what's out there in terms of, I'm not mathematical or I couldn't do engineering or whatever. Be brave in terms of that. I would say do what you love.
Okay.
You know, I think that's important. And I also would say to my 13-year-old, you know, be kind. I think kindness is very much underrated in the world we live in. I think we need to be kind to each other in work and out of work. Always asking people, how are they? What's going on that might be holding them back or upsetting them? And I also think doing whatever sport you like to do, whether it's jumping in the sea or playing hockey or rugby or whatever, I think people need to look after their mental and physical well-being, and so it's not all the books. You need to balance that.
And will you elaborate a little bit on that, Anne, relating to well-being and this I suppose ability to be resilient, and how looking after yourself can enable you to look after others in a much better way?
So what I say, you know, if you want to be a leader in business and you want to be successful in business, you have to look after yourself first. And that's very important. So I often meet people that work long hours and very hard at the expense of their health, their mental health or their physical health or their relationship with their family and friends. And that's not good. And, because what I find as CEO of Vodafone is I really don't know what's going to come at me when I arrive into work in the morning. Yeah? So I need to be balanced and calm and reflective, and I need to be in a good place. So for me, I exercise as many mornings that I can.
You're an accomplished triathlete.
Accomplished.
An accomplished.
I wouldn't like to race any of this lot. No, I used to be accomplished. I'm now a very slow, poor triathlete, but it's fine. Once you hit 50, everything slows down. It's grand. You don't have to worry about that. I didn't believe it. They said 40, but they were lying. It's 50. So, but I do swim, run, cycle. And it's very important for me to do that. So at the weekends, I'll run, go for a 10K run on a Saturday morning, maybe jump into the sea afterwards, go for a cycle outdoors. It's really, really important. So I often say that. So just to think about that, you need to be resilient, you see, because you will have setbacks. So, the coronavirus is something we're planning for in Vodafone now. It's another potential crisis. How do I keep 2,000 employees safe? How do I have a duty of care to them? How do I make sure that I protect them, that I protect our business and how it keeps running, whatever is going to happen? How I protect our customers. We have 2.3 million customers in Ireland. Think about it. Half of you are probably customers. We have business customers. They're all running on Vodafone's infrastructure. That's a huge responsibility. I have to make sure my people, my customers, myself is in a good place. So there's no point in me working 12 or 14 hours a day and not being able to deal with it. And having resilience is important, be able to bounce back out of crises and setbacks. We'll all have setbacks, whether it's personal setbacks, whether it's professional setbacks. It's how you deal with them. The people that deal with them are the people that learn, develop and grow.
And so against that backdrop, you were invited to here today and you fulfilled that commitment. Why?
I know. I have to say to you now, at the meeting yesterday, I said I'm going to UCC to speak at an event and they're all looking at me, the coronavirus. But I didn't want to let you down, So really, for me, I had committed to do something. I felt I wouldn't be kissing or hugging any of you. There'd be none of that. And I just felt I had committed, and I didn't. That was it. And my word is kind of, important. Yeah.
You're a person of values. They're the same values in your personal life as in your professional life. I have refrained from asking Anne about, what they think of, what sort of graduates and so on do they need, or employees do they need in the future, because we'll have that opportunity over the next few minutes. But before we close on this just 1 to whatever number of hundreds of people discussion we're having, I want to ask you, how do you learn? Because life is about learning, it never stops.
So for me, learning kind of on the job really works for me, and people explaining stuff. So sending me big reams of things, I don't particularly like. So usually, people will send me a brief on whatever. So I get a brief every day, let's say on coronavirus update. It's short because they know I won't read reams of page. But we'll have a meeting, a half an hour meeting every day. I'll dial in now on the road back to Dublin. So I learn by listening. I learn by things being explained to me. I learn by questioning. Now, obviously, I do other courses which are different. I did the Chartered Directors course because you need it if you're sitting on boards in terms of governance. I'd like to do a coaching course, which is probably slightly different. And I've done other finance courses and whatever. So, but usually they might be short, 3 days a month for 6 months, or whatever, rather than big, long. But you learn by asking questions and listening. I read stuff, but not a huge amount. Curiosity and being open is key. It's a key skill. And knowing, and also, I know I don't know it all. That's really important. I kind of feel I know nothing about anything, if I'm honest, because I'm, a generalist. And that's good, because then you can ask the stupid questions. And I don't really have an ego, so I don't think any question is stupid, even though I'd say some of them are like, oh my God, that's really thick. But that's fine, because often it's those stupid questions are the really good questions. And we, I think in Vodafone, we try to make things simple for people. We try to make technology simple, so everyone understands what we're trying to achieve and why we're trying to achieve it. And we make the right decisions and well-informed decisions.
So you mentioned curiosity. So this morning, several skills came up. Agility, flexibility, these extracurricular things that we do, the things which define us are kind of, as we keep saying, our unique selling points. What makes Anne, what makes John, and so on. So what you really stand for. So Anne, relating to that, if you were to say what values of yours are non-negotiable, or what are your values, and then what is non-negotiable?
So I suppose, I get asked to join boards and different things, and the values of the board of the company needs to be aligned with mine. So, or, if they weren't, that they're going to try and change those values. So for example, diversity and inclusion and gender diversity is absolutely key for me. And, not all companies are at 50-50, but they've admitted they're not, and they're trying to do something about it, and that's good. Some industries just don't attract me. Drinks, cigarettes, gambling, no matter how much money is in it, I won't work for them. So I really want to work for a company that I believe is purposeful and wants to do good. But I don't mean a charity. Now, I am a chair of a charity goal, but that's different. Like, obviously, we have to have commercial returns. So I'm not Mother Teresa, just to be clear. Just to be very clear. But I believe by doing good, by putting in these policies, we'll have better people, we'll have more engaged, we'll make better decisions, and we'll be more successful than our competitors. We'll beat our competitors. We'll have higher revenue growth. We'll have higher profitability. We'll have more capital investment, more return on capital. So all the commercial results, which are so important in business, are superior because of the values we hold dear: respect for people, everyone feels they belong, inclusion for all, our sustainability and planet agenda, all the benefits that comes with that. So I suppose they're the kind of things that are values that are important to me, and would judge what boards I sit on, or what companies we work with, or who we partner with.
Anne, thank you very, very much. I think that we could benefit from sitting and listening to you for a number of hours, such words of wisdom, but unfortunately the clock marches on, and we're going to extend the discussion now, so we'll take our seats back here, to include Clara Walsh from Workvivo, Ryan O'Neill from LegitFit, and Meadhbh O'Sullivan from Google. So may I welcome you all on stage. So we have Ryan, Meadhbh, Clara, and Anne. And this, the next 15 minutes, I'm going to keep my eye on the clock this time, we're going to talk about the workforce of the future and what work is going to look like in the future. We hear about transitions, the time, we're living in a time of technologies, robotics, artificial intelligence, and ultimately we're led to believe that, in fact, we may be working less many years from now. But that's not going to happen in the short term. So in the first instance, I just want to, and I'll literally start with Ryan and work up. You might just introduce yourself, Ryan, and what you do in LegitFit.
Sure.
And what is LegitFit?
Yep, so my name is Ryan O'Neill. I'm the founder and CEO of LegitFit. We essentially help independent fitness professionals to manage, retain, and grow their business through software.
Okay, so a software platform.
Yeah, it's software.
So a means of communication.
Yeah, exactly. So it allows professionals who are working in fitness and their clients to communicate, to book in, just streamlining the whole process for their clients, streamlining the whole process for themselves as well.
Okay. So then moving on, we might, Meadhbh, talk to us about what you do at Google.
Hi everybody, my name is Meadhbh O'Sullivan. So yes, I'm a manager in our staffing services team, which is part of people operations, aka HR, at our Google Ireland office. So my team manage all of our hiring operations globally. We schedule all of our interviews, all of the logistics around that, candidate travel. So COVID-19 is keeping us very busy. And yes, we help hire our talent in a nutshell.
And both of you, just before we leave this couch, you're both graduates of UCC, two different areas, very different areas. You might, Ryan, you're a...
Yeah, so I did pharma chemistry as my undergrad, went out into the industry and found that was definitely not for me. I actually remember the moment I realised that, which was 4 a.m. on a shift on my own in a lab. Definitely not my kind of work, but I went back then and did the Masters in Management and Marketing with Cubs.
Very good. And Maeve?
And I studied Business Information Systems in UCC as my degree.
Okay. So you two can head up a major part of Google in a short number of years. Isn't that fair to say?
Clara and I were laughing about this earlier. So I'm still 21 in my head. So I started at Deloitte after college. I worked as an IT consultant there, and I'm almost 8 years at Google now. I've had 4 different roles, and I transferred back from our Sydney office back in May after 2 years in Australia. But yeah, almost 10 years post BIS and UCC, which is very hard.
Well, you've achieved an awful lot in a very short time. And the point is the role you have is a very senior role in Google in that short time.
I wouldn't say that now.
Yeah, well, I would. And yours is a startup, isn't it, Ryan? We're going to come here now in 2 seconds, but yours is your own company.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So there's 4 founders in the company, and then we have 3 employees. So we founded the company kind of whilst I was on the master's course. I was also in Ignite, which is also UCC based, and we kind of just went from there, kicked on bit by bit, and yeah, that's where.
Now moving here to Clara, you might introduce yourself, what you're doing with Workvivo.
Yeah, sure. So I'm the operations manager at Workvivo, and Workvivo, we're a technology startup that was founded in 2017, and we've built an internal communications platform that is helping companies improve their employee engagement. So when we were designing the platform, we looked at the way you guys are all familiar with interacting outside of work, but brought that into a business context. So an employee can go in, they can post and read updates, they can like, share, and comment like you do outside of work. But you can also recognize your colleagues for a job well done by giving a shout out, and also link updates to company goals and values. So what the result has determined, or what's happened, is that we've created a communication experience that not only do employees love to use, but also enables businesses to connect employees to, I suppose, what the organization is trying to achieve, but also the cultural values of that organization.
And how long ago did you join Workvivo?
2 years actually, in a couple of weeks. So it's been a roller coaster 2 years, but a brilliant experience.
So since you graduated, because you're a Business Information Systems graduate as well?
Yes, yeah.
UCC?
We were saying Maeve used to be my tutor in first year as well, so we go way back.
So what did you do when you left college?
Yeah, so when I left, I took a software developer role with Core HR, and I was there for around 18 months. And I actually came back to UCC and did a research master's with the State Street Advanced Technology Centre. From that, worked with State Street for a while, and then when the guys approached me about the role in Workvivo, I couldn't really say no to the opportunity.
So in some shape or form, the 4 companies represented here are in the communications sphere, either providing the technology or the platforms or the tools required. So if we look to the future, what do you think communications will be like? If you can imagine, sort of 20 years from now, how will people communicate, and what will be key to enable that?
Yeah, I think today there's so many different channels for communication, not only outside of work, but in work, where you have emails, you have your instant messaging. And what we're seeing is that is a very noisy landscape. So I think you're always going to have your emails, but we're used to now digesting information with your likes of your LinkedIn, your Instagram, short messages with images, with videos. So I think the days of sending out an all-staff email with reams and reams of paragraphs are kind of gone. You read it and you probably delete it straight away. So it's just we're changing how we digest information, and that's both personal and in a business context.
And what would you, any comment related from Google's perspective on that?
So I'd agree with everything Clara said. a very topical one that's very top of mind for us, and it's also a hot topic in terms of the environment. But I can't debate the value of in-person time in terms of working alongside folks, projects, and if you're trying to get a deal. So no question that face-to-face in-person time can be really important. However, the majority of my work, the majority of a lot of the work that we would span, it can be done virtually. So in terms of travel and long-haul travel and flights and air miles, not only will it be more green friendly, but I do feel like the technology like virtual interviews, but virtual meetings, like I had an 8 a.m. with Singapore this morning to get a handover from our APAC team, and I'll be dialing in with Seattle tonight. And literally it could just be as if they're on the couch. If the technology is that good, it defeats, or like that can be more efficient versus the in-person piece.
But presumably along the line, the journey in that relationship building, there will be times where the one-to-one is crucial.
I think, yes, and I guess the context and the situation, like I would always ask myself, okay, is that something that would benefit or warrant a trip? Versus the majority of my work I can do very comfortably virtually because the technology is that good, and that will just continue to grow. So technical glitches like you asking us looking ahead, we're continuing to iterate and improve and invest in all those technologies. So my hope, and I'm sure that will be the case, it will just continue to become more polished, more refined as we go.
And what, from your perspective, not necessarily Vodafone's perspective, how do you think people will communicate in the future?
Well, I think actually, we're just talking now at the moment, some big events we were meant to have, but because of the virus and the risks, how are we going to communicate the things we want to communicate, right? And my big worry is that it's less personal and it'll be done all remotely and digitally and nobody will engage, right? That's my fear. So I'm talking about how can we make this chunkier, cut it down to small pieces, and how can we be really creative about how we're going to talk and how we're going to make it interesting and engaging for people, yet keep the business running and get messages across. If all these big groups and gatherings will be cancelled over the next few months. So we're thinking about that. So I think, I know your platform now, it's just, you presented the platform. I know now exactly what you're talking about, right? I have it. So like that, we're looking at different ways of engaging people. The email just doesn't work. The conference calls, so you're trying to mix it up because you're respecting everyone's different, how they process information and how they take information in. So if you want to get a message out, what's the multiple ways and channels you do that? So I think as the world becomes more digital, and as people may not travel because of planet and etc., and I think we do need to think about that. But again, I will go back to, I don't think there's anything like face-to-face interaction. And I think, again, the mental benefits and social benefits of being with people, far outweigh being isolated in rural Ireland on your own in a house on a screen. So I think we just have to always think about that. I also think, and I could be wrong, but it's what I feel is, I do a lot of VCs with colleagues all over the world, but I've met them face to face. So I find it really easy then. Once I know them, having the VC, you can chat about things and whatever. And then I'm wondering about if I've never met the person before and then you're straight onto VC, do I ever really get the real person? But that could be an unconscious bias that I have. And I also, we talked about the importance of networking and relationships and people, but I find it even with my office. I go around my office, I go for breakfast, I go for lunch, we have an open plan office, and I find more information walking around the building. My HR guys, how did you hear that? Who told you that? People come up to you and they tell you things that you wouldn't ordinarily hear maybe if you were away in an office on your own. And that is important in your business. What's really going on? Is there something going on you're not hearing about, people aren't telling you? So I think we do have to think about, I am not convinced that technology is going to be the answer and remove the social and one-to-one interaction that we need as a society and as human beings.
Well, it came up a lot this morning about networking and how crucial it is, and people do business with people, and it's about relationships. So, if you could comment on an approach to networking. So you're out there, you're a fifth-year student, or you're in third comm or whatever. You're saying networking. Yeah, I think I know what it is. What actually is it to you? And if you were to give one nugget of advice from each one of you to the audience to incorporate such that they become better networkers, starting with you, Ryan.
So sometimes we joke about this and we say it's not working, where we're just out having beers with people and just talking. But I think it's been really powerful for us, either when it's getting customers or whatever it is. But I suppose I find the most powerful thing that you can do is actually just be vulnerable, and be okay with that you're like, you don't have to come across as the best person. A lot of the time when we're in a startup, we're asking for help. All of the time, pretty much. And you have to be okay with that and just kind of take that. So, I would be okay with just not knowing everything, being vulnerable in that situation, and then just putting yourself out there.
Okay. And coming along, what would you suggest, Meadhbh?
Yeah, so I remember being in school and college, and we'd be encouraged to network. So I'm an extroverted introvert. So, I need my me time, and if I'm after a really long day, going for drinks, that would drain me even further. I'm happy to go home and still have company or whatever. But because I'm an introvert naturally, when I would hear the term networking, I would find that very intimidating. And it can be intimidating for a lot of people, particularly when you're younger and you're starting out in your career. So what I would do is flip it. So don't put what could be an intimidating term with it. Think of it as just getting to know someone. And that's what I started to do for myself. So when my manager would be like, you should network more, I would think about, right, how can I build my circle and get to know different folks? We have 8,000 people across our site in Dublin. However, I'm very thankful and lucky, even after my 2 years in our Sydney office, I've built an amazing network right across the site. Not because I had my network hat on, but because I'm a people person and I genuinely love getting to know people, what makes them tick, what parts of the business they're working in. And a big one for me that is also a nice kind of organic way without putting too much pressure on yourself while doing it. There's the business side, but also the social side. So there was a lot of activities and things that I headed up and led for our Dublin office socially, which organically allowed me to get to know folks right across the site. So if you're passionate about art or sport, those are also a really natural way to not put pressure on yourself, but to really kind of build that network. And it's all about connections. And in terms of a job offer, could come up, for me, 90% of the time, it's about who you know and timing and that little bit of luck. So a network or getting to know folks is a very important part of that.
And any very practical tips? So you're going to an event this evening, Anne. What do you do in advance?
Well, so for business, usually I get the list of who's going, if I can, because I go to a lot of business events. Now, I usually run through the list because I'm thinking, who are my customers? And I need to remember their name. Do you know the way? It's much easier. So I might glance through, and 6 out of 10 people are customers of ours. So it's important that I say hello and I appreciate it. So I might have a glance through and say, oh, he or she is going, I must go, and I'll make it, to go up and say hello, thank you for your business, or how is everything? So I'd often do that. The second thing is, I think everyone feels, a lot of the events you go to, you're going on your own. So just to tell and I think at least 80% are probably going, I'm going in on my own. Will I know anyone? Maybe I'll go in and nobody will talk to me, and it could be awful. But actually, what I find is everyone's the same. So I go in, and whoever I'm with, I'm present with them. I introduce myself. Hi, I'm Anne from Vodafone. Look them in the eye. Maybe not shake the hand now, but you could do that. So that's a good start. And listen to them. And I would say sometimes I'd be going to my husband, oh God, I have another event tonight. And he's a complete introvert, so he could think of nothing worse than my job, right? He's like going, how could you go to that? And 9 out of 10 times when I come home, he goes, how was the event? And I go, fabulous. I met this really interesting person. So what I find is it opens your mind to what's going on in other businesses, what's going on in the world. And I encourage a lot of our people and especially our female leaders, because a lot of them have kids and the work and the kids can be time consuming. But I say, please get out, because you just get a feel for other things that are going on. You can become one-dimensional, whether you're working in UCC or in Vodafone. So I really think it's important just to go out and be yourself and listen. And
so you're saying you'll get the list of who's going to be there in advance, and you'll take time to look at it and then be targeted when you're there. And Clara?
I was going to say, just to be yourself, you know, as the conversation goes, it probably will completely pivot into what your interests are. It may not just be work related. No. So I would say just completely be yourself and put yourself out there.
Final, I think I've maybe another minute or two. I don't have another minute or two. So just to wind it up and say thank you very, very much for your contributions. And I think there's some nuggets for the audience to take away with them, and for your inspirational presentations. Thank you all very much.